So before we get to the politics, which are terribly important for all sorts of reasons, let's talk about something that really should be above politics, and that is that tragic shooting, yet another mass shooting out in Thousand Oaks that happened overnight. You have been the mayor of a city. You have been a lieutenant governor of a state. What can be done?
Well, the most important thing, like for the moment, and I'll talk about that in a second, is to think about the families who lost loved ones. I'm also the father of a freshman in college, so my heart is in my throat for the parents that are thinking about their children right now, and of course the officers and the first responders. As the mayor, I responded to a lot of mass shootings, and I can assure you that they're working as hard as they can to make sure that they get the families what they need. I actually think this is a solvable problem, but the nation is going to have to stop and realize how cataclysmic it is. We've lost about 630,000 American citizens on the streets of America since 1980. We really have to look at this. It's not just a gun issue, but it is. It's not just a public health issue, but it is. It's not just a public safety. It's all of the above. And these things are going to continue to happen unless we on the federal, state, and local level decide to do everything we can to put a stop to it.
So let's talk about the federal level for a moment, because as I say, politics is important. I mean, some people use it almost like a dirty word, but in fact, that's the way a democracy works, how we get stuff done. We now have a divided government, a divided Congress. Is that possibly a good thing? Could things happen for the better because it's divided?
Well, I think, the founding fathers created a government that could check itself. Either judiciary checking the legislative branch checking the executive branch. I think one of the results of this election, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, was that they thought that the executive branch needed to be checked. President Trump has a way of getting outside of the guardrails, which he does almost on a daily basis, and I think they wanted to check him. However, they also sent a very clear message to Washington, and one of the reasons why they're so frustrated is they want Congress to get together, they want them to work together, and they want them to get things done that the American people need. Infrastructure is a perfect example. The roads, the bridges, the sewer systems of this country are crumbling, and they need Congress to get together on that, which ought to be a nonpartisan issue. So we'll see. But, Washington's a funny place, and they've been locked into gridlock for a long time. And I think the American public is hoping that they're going to find a way out of it.
So infrastructure is something that comes up repeatedly as something that maybe some Democrats could see eye to eye with some Republicans on. Again, you've acted at the state and the local level. You know what the issues are most directly. At the same time, Washington has a tendency to throw money at problems. Isn't part of the issue with respect to infrastructure how we're going to pay for it?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of both. So first of all, if you want to create really robust economic growth, you have to have a way for commerce to take place. And if the airplanes are not flying and the airports are not working and the roads are not available or the waterways are not working, economic growth is going to slow down. So it seems to me that everybody should have a reason to want to do it. Secondly, it is really about money. It's money on the local level, the federal level, and the state level. It usually gets done when everybody's showing up and doing their part. And this is a place where Congress can really play a role. I mean, the highway system back in the day really spurred us into a new era. And I think everybody has now demonstrated and understands how difficult, the situation that we're in now. So I think everybody in America, a great consensus is that, look, focus on that first. Let's see if we can do something together and demonstrate that you can get things done.
So you've said that you would really like Congress to be pragmatic, get together, get things done. At the same time, there's a lot of people, Democrats in Congress, who think it's time to do some investigating of the president and people in the administration. What's your advice on that? Because the president said it's going to be awful hard for us to be holding out hands to one another if we're investigating each other.
Well, this is when they get into he said, she said. I think that when the Benghazi hearings were going on, the Democrats nose were out of joint because the Republicans abused their investigative authority. The Congress has to do their job and to investigate where appropriate, and they have to know not where to go. And to them, I'd follow the law. I'd be very circumspect about it. When you can agree with the president and the Republicans on what's good for the country, they should cooperate. In instances where there's laws that have been broken and things that have to be investigated, do it, but do it appropriately, do it fairly. Make sure that everybody is treated with due process, and just do your job. And by the way, you can do more than one thing in Congress during the day. So there are 435 members on the House side and 100 senators on the Senator side, and they can get a lot of work done in all of the areas that are important that they're responsible for.
Let's talk about what we learned about the Democratic Party coming out of this election. I mean, you have a long history of the Democratic Party. Your family does, as a matter of fact. What did we learn about the Democratic Party? Because some people thought it was a little disappointing. They didn't have the big blue wave they'd hoped for. What happened from your point of view?
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with that. 300 Democratic state legislators were elected across the country. Remember, 8 years previously, we got wiped out in state legislative races. We elected 7 Democratic governors. 3 states that are run by Republican governors went over the governor's head and approved Medicaid expansion. And the kinds of people that were elected, the diversity and the generational change is going to change politics in the United States for years to come. So I think that was very positive. I do think we were disappointed because we got closer than we thought we would have in Texas, in Georgia, which is not over yet, and, of course, Florida. And we thought we had great candidates. So that was a little bit disappointing. But we also took back the House of Representatives, which I think is pretty significant. It's going to change the way business is done. But again, now that we have power in the House of Representatives, my suggestion would be to act responsibly and thoughtfully, whether you're in the state legislature, in the state house, or in Congress, and actually work across the aisles to get things done. One
of the questions, at least some people are asking, is who exactly is leading or should lead the Democratic Party? We have Nick Kristof in the New York Times today having a nomination. And what he says is one lesson from the midterms is that a nominee like Senator Elizabeth Warren might increase the odds of Trump's reelection. A nominee from beyond the Beltway with experience running things like Mitch Landrieu, the former New Orleans mayor, or the Department of Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper might be a better bet. So it sounds like Nick Kristof is nominating you. Are you prepared to accept that nomination to be the leader?
No, well, that's very nice of him, but no. But I think what he's trying to say is a type. And the type of leader that he thinks the country needs is someone that's a problem solver. You'll hear this from mayors and governors across the country, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And look, there's no conservative or liberal way to fill a pothole, to get the police where they need to be, just to make things work. And it's a yearning to have non-ideologically bent folks solving problems. Now, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have these internecine wars every 4 years when they argue about whether it's the left of the party, the middle of the party, or the right of the party that's going to rule. And the Democrats will have that same fight in the next 2 years. And we're going to have to figure that out going forward. I, as someone who served as a CEO, as a lieutenant governor and a mayor, always yearn towards compromise, to finding new ways to solve old problems, to working with people that you don't agree with or don't like, just to get an answer to the problem, because that's what the American public demands. And when you're a mayor, you don't have time to run away from the problems, because the people see you on the street the next day and let you know how you're doing or how you're not doing. And it argues in favor of a get-it-done kind of person, whoever that is.
And what role are you prepared to play in getting that done?
Well, listen, I've been involved in government for 30 years. And as a citizen, a private citizen now, I expect that my voice, will be useful and heard, and will help try to find a way to shape policy as an American citizen, not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, somebody just to get it done, and to be able to call into question leaders who get out of the way, as President Trump does, way too often. And, of course, yesterday, instead of just kind of staying focused on what the election was, with the dismissal of the Attorney General and trying to shut down the Mueller investigation, that puts us into a whole bunch of bipartisan territory that all of us should be against, and let that investigation take its course and finish, and then get on about the business of governing the country.